Hey, what's going on, everybody? So in this video, I'll be going over NVDA, S&P, and NASDAQ. Just saying S&P and NASDAQ are going to look pretty similar. But we'll jump into NVIDIA first. And I'm going to start off here on the weekly time frame. I'll pull up a Fibonacci, high to low. And as you can see here, the previous consolidation range can give you targets to look for. So if NVIDIA continues to hold above 1108, we can look for 1326 for NVIDIA. Okay. And upside continuation is likely because the weekly 21 EMA is still pointed up. But remember, this is a weekly time frame. Even though this is pointed up, price action could find some rejection here and come down a little bit and really just go sideways before continuing higher. But this would let the 21 weekly EMA catch up to price action, right? Price action can only go so far away from the EMAs until it has to mean revert, back to it or close enough to it. Okay. And now another thing too, with market cipher B, money flow is still thick. I ultimately think Nvidia goes much higher this year, 15, 1800, maybe even 2000. But that doesn't mean it's going to go straight up in a fucking line. Okay, that's not how things work. There's going to be periods of consolidation and periods of correction. A correction period could also mean sideways too, and just pour people out. Okay. And where I'm getting this from is really the weekly market cipher B momentum waves. I know it's not curving yet too much, but I'll dig into the shorter time frame here in a second. But could be potentially bearish divergences starting to form on NVIDIA, right? And as I said in my previous videos, for equities, right, stocks, and especially strong stocks like NVIDIA, these can form like a bunch over time, right, as price just grinds higher. So I wouldn't take it like, oh my gosh, NVIDIA is going to fucking top. It's possible, but highly unlikely. But that's just weakness signs potentially beginning to show themselves. Okay, that's all. I'm not bearish on NVIDIA here at all. Right, and when their stock splits, that's going to be a great thing for fucking options, right? If I see a trade set up on Nvidia for a nice swing trade, I might take some nice call options because they'll be hell of a lot cheaper, right, than buying them now. While Nvidia's at fucking 1200, right? When their stock splits is going to be $120. Okay, so the options is going to be pretty nice. But here I am on the daily chart. So we can see that daily stochastic is in the oversold region, but we're also getting a red dot on market cipher. So even though Nvidia is in an oversold region on the daily, right, it could potentially bounce from here. But from how price action looks, red dot, VWAP is negative, and the daily EMA is a bit far from price action. I expect some downside potentially here in the short term for Nvidia. Daily stochastic being oversold isn't always a bullish thing, so to say. It could just mean there's more selling to come, right? The volatility is potentially favoring the sellers, right? Downside price action. But we're short term here. I'm not saying Nvidia is going to go fucking nuke. Okay, we can pull up some support. I'll pull up a fib. If this was a local high here at, let's get the exact level here, at 1255, I'll switch that to red for resistance. At 1255, because that could signal here a little reversal candle here. This previous daily candle, June 6th. Okay. So if that was a local high there, a short-term one, we can pull up the Fibonacci and pull it from the low of the move. So move it over a bit. As you see here, for NVDA, area of support will be first at the 786. That would be 11.48. So when the stock splits, it's going to be $114, right? And 91 cents. That's what the support area would be. And then as well as the golden pocket at 1,080 and 1,064. That'll be equivalent to $108.94 to $106.94. Some shit like that. Okay. Uh, so that's going to be areas of confluence. But this, with a strong uptrending market on the daily time frame, you really pay attention to the 21. The 21's already in the golden pocket, so NVIDIA could really just go sideways here, right? Maybe bull flag it out, kind of something like this, and let the 21 daily EMA come up, test that as support, and that could be good entries for maybe some longs or just more continuation. Not financial advice. Don't listen to a random guy on the internet, right? Just I'm just going off what I've seen before. That's all. Right. So area support is going to be 1148, 1080, right? Let the daily 21 EMA catch up. We can even pull up another short-term Fibonacci here. It's going to be a real tight one. And here we go. So we already tested the golden pocket for this. That was 1190, 1184. We did get a short-term reaction out of it, right? We got a little wick under it, 1180, and moved back up to 1215. So the next area of support is going to be out at the 50% retracement between 1068 and 1255. The 50% retracement is 1162. So that would be what like $116.26 when the stock splits, right? And we can pull up a zone between the 50% retracement and the 382. I would expect this to hold for NVIDIA. Okay. The last area of support really is going to be at the 236 at 1,113. So that would be like $111.34 whenever the stock splits. But if I were to be in a trade, and an entry would be between this 50% 382 level at 1,162 or 1140. If we break 1140, I would probably cut the trade, because considering how strong NVIDIA has been and it being an equity, I wouldn't want to see it breaking under the 382. All right, that would be a major sign of weakness for the short term at least. And you would just have to look for higher time frame support, okay? Because you can still get weekly higher lows, right? That doesn't mean the fucking top is in. I'm just going off a short term time frame perspective. So you got to zoom out. Anything under, so the real bear case would be for NVIDIA, if you start to break under 974, all right, that's a bit fishy, especially 762. You don't want to break under that, right? If you break under 974, considering this was a range here, if you break under 974, there's a good probability you can come back and test 762. So that'll be your first sign of weakness. Other than that, I would expect higher lows to be expected, okay? Right? And just curious here, from where it's at now, so a 20% move down would be, and what did it do here? A 20% move. Interesting. Back here, a 20% move. Very, very interesting. So 25%. Okay. Interesting. All right, so from the bottom end, October 2022 to now for this trend, it seems that there's confluence with corrections being around 20% for NVIDIA. So if this was a a local high here at 1255, and we get a 20% move from here, 22.2% move, that would put us at a backtest at 974. That would be a retest of a previous breakout of an all-time high level. All right, so that would actually, it would look scary. Sentiment would probably be bearish as hell. But that would probably present very nice entries, swing trade entries on NVIDIA. Just something to think about. That's very interesting there. Very interesting. Considering the weekly EMA is pretty far, it could happen. Who knows? But overall, NVIDIA looks very bullish, and I wouldn't be surprised if we can see some short-term price action to the downside and make higher lows or sideways. Okay, but ultimately, considering that this could be a local high here, we can pull up a fib and just talk about some price targets to the upside, right? Next targets after 1259, if that was a local high and we do correct here, and we come back and break out, well, after that, 1568 would be the next target. And that would be equivalent to $156 on after when the stock splits. After that would be above $2,000. Pretty fucking insane for NVIDIA. Okay. But short term, I wouldn't be surprised to see some downside on NVIDIA. All right, some volatility. And don't be surprised that if, over time here in the coming weeks, maybe a couple months, that NVIDIA could trade back down to 974. Okay. Considering that this whole run up, NVIDIA has had corrections of 20%. 20% move from 1255 would put us back at 974, which was the previous all-time high back in March. Right? We also have a gap fill there. Right here. That's also a gap fill area. So pretty good confluence, really. And just one more time, I want to see this fib. Yeah, that puts us at like the 50% 382 level. Yeah, pretty interesting. So if I want to say if 1140 doesn't hold on NVIDIA, I would expect this wick to get filled here at let's see. It's a very simple chart here. Yeah, if 1140 doesn't hold on NVIDIA, I would expect this wick to get filled at 1069. That is just a single clean wick, hasn't been touched. So there's probably good liquidity there to take. 1140 doesn't hold, I would expect 1069. If 1069 doesn't hold there, well, we're going to be looking for 974, right, in this zone. 1015 to 960, likely 974 for NVIDIA. And potentially that could be another range here, and eventually it just breaks out to the upside, right? It grinds out, breaks out higher. I don't think price action is going to be looking like that, but some shit like that is what I'm saying. Okay. Still ultimately bullish this year for NVIDIA, but things don't go up forever in a straight line. It's not how things work. There's going to be corrections. Sentiment's going to have to flip, from bears to bulls, bulls to bears. Just how it goes. So, keeping that there with NVIDIA. I kind of like those setups and thinking about it. So, going on to S&P 500. Start off on the daily. Not much has really changed. Last week we did make a higher high, which was pretty cool. Pretty good signs. Ultimately, S&P is likely going higher this year as well. Okay, and even if NVIDIA does have a short-term correction and chops around, that could also mean that momentum is momentum or money is flowing into other sectors of the stock market, and that will bring up the S&P too. Okay, so even if NVIDIA does go down or chop sideways, that could give more breathing room for other sectors in the stock market, in the S&P and NASDAQ, to help the S&P and NASDAQ go up as well and make new all-time highs. Okay, or at least hold for higher lows on a higher time frame basis. Okay, it's not all just about NVIDIA. A decent amount of it is, but it's not all about NVIDIA. Okay, and just stick to price action. Keeping this simple, we made a higher high with a weekly close above the previous all-time highs and wicks here on May 20th. Ultimately, the S&P is bullish. I would expect continuation in the coming months, especially just really this year. I don't really see much reason to get too bearish on the S&P 500 as of right now. Now, just like NVIDIA, there are signs showing that weekly bearish divergences are beginning to form. But it being the S&P 500, it takes time for this to play out. It takes a lot of time for it to play out. Okay? Much time. We can pull up a Fibonacci. Short term, looks like S&P could come up and test 541 potentially. After that would be 570. All right, but it will take some time. S&P just likes to grind on up real slowly with some corrections in there. So ultimately, S&P looks pretty bullish here with that weekly close. It being above previous all-time highs and especially the wicks. I would expect a continuation. Short term on the daily, sure, you could get some choppy price action sideways or maybe a little bit down. All right, and we can pull up a real short-term Fibonacci here. A downside, short-term downside targets could be at the golden pocket 530, 529, and 527. All right, if 527 doesn't hold, we could test like 522, 525, obviously, but I think we would want to see 527 hold, because if that doesn't hold, your next area of support is going to be this low here at 518, just looking at it cleanly. So higher time frame, longer term bullish on the S&P. QQQ is going to be just about really the same fucking thing. All right, it's a very same look. All right, it actually looks a little bit stronger than S&P, considering we got a cleaner break above the wicks and price action, the closures. Sorry. Yeah, keeping it simple. No, higher time frame, long-term continuation, especially for this year on the Nasdaq and S&P, as well as NVIDIA. But NVIDIA could go chop around sideways. Okay, and probably there's a high probability chance that NVIDIA comes down 20%, considering it's done it 3 previous times this whole run up from October 2022. Okay, but that just brings in good entries to go swing long, most likely. So with that being said, guys, peace out, thank you, and see you in the next one.